Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell.
All right, it's time once again for Music Night at the Majestic, and with me tonight, Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters. Greg, welcome to the show.
Greetings from Kentucky. How are you doing, Michael?
Doing great. Great to see you again.
It's great seeing you. I'm so glad after all these years we're still around.
Yeah, you got that right.
Man, it's been a while.
Yeah. Well,
I'm guessing 1990? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, 1991. So, because in fact, the first time I met you guys, you were playing a show.
Yeah.
And I got there to do an interview, with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm told, the guy said just head up to the dressing room. So I head on up, and you guys are in there, and you're all, very gracious. Oh, great to see you, whatever. And then I think it was Richard said, yeah, you have to hang on though. Ricky Lee's in the shower. So we're sitting there, and then after enough time had gone by, and Fred goes over and hollers at him, "Hey, Ricky Lee, the interview guy's here." So next thing you know, here comes Ricky Lee out of the bathroom with nothing on but a towel.
That sounds normal for back then.
Yep. And he walks straight up to me, shakes my hand, and says, "How are you, sir? Let's get this thing going." And he stood there, nothing but a towel for the rest of the interview.
That's great. That's Ricky Lee, man. That's brother Ricky. Those were crazy times, I'll tell you. That's about the time we were on that horse. That horse was we jumped on this wild horse end of '89, but it bucked all the way into the mid '90s. Of course, we're still riding it, man, but it's tamer now, thank God.
Right. Well, tell you what, talk about Pickin on Nashville, the album that broke big for you guys. At that point, you'd already been together for almost 20 years, hadn't you?
Yeah, well, Richard, Fred, and I started playing together in 1968. And how that happened is 1968, I really became smitten with the guitar and wanted to be in a band. And of course, I started playing way before that, but I had a cousin by the name of Larry Sullivan came on the bus one morning, said, "Hey, we're doing a 4-H talent show in November, and there's this fellow that's moved to Edmonton Elementary because his dad is doing some student teaching there for credits, and he's going to be playing guitar. Would you be interested in playing guitar?" And then there was a couple other guys from school. I think Gary Martin on bass and Kevin Emerton on drums. And he said, "Well, we're going to do play a little music, psychedelic stuff, Born to Be Wild, whatever." And it was going to be kind of a hippie like little play of some sort. So I said, "Oh yeah, sure, that sounds great." Because I really, at that time, I was just smitten by the music. And I walked down to Edmonton Elementary from Metcalfe County High School one day. Me and Richard were one grade apart, and he was at the elementary school. He was in the 8th grade, and I was a freshman. And I met him in the lunchroom cafeteria in the kitchen, actually. We sat down with our guitars, and I met him. We played Born to Be Wild. We played Hey Jude, Sunshine of Your Love, maybe Revolution by the Beatles. And we thought, oh, yeah, we could probably do this. And we hit it off. And we did the 4-H talent show with these other guys. And after it was over, Richard said, "Hey, I've got a band with my brother Fred and my cousin Anthony. And would you be interested to come over and jam it?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I went over to Richard's house. Actually, the first time I jammed with Richard and Fred was at the old practice house. I remember it being cold, and there was another guy playing bass, Mike Perkins. No, actually Steve Perkins. It was his brother. And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, so why don't you check out our cousin Anthony on bass? Well, I went down and jammed with them guys in Richard's living room. Fred on drums, and their cousin Anthony Kenny on bass. and Richard on rhythm guitar. And they had this incredible groove. They had a great little sound, even back then. It was just it was just something there, and it was just easy to fit in with them, And that's when we started playing. 1968, I think we ended up playing a Toys for Tots show that winter. We played a birthday party, and we played off and on all through high school. In 1972, I graduated, ended up moving to Louisville. I was intended to stay in Midcalf County, but my parents wanted to move back to Louisville. And it became apparent that I wasn't going to be doing very well on my own. So I thought I got scared and said, I better go back to Louisville. So we tried to keep it together, but we couldn't keep it together because I ended up getting a job at a printing company, actually Fawcett Printing, which turned into World Color Press, which has roots in your area, you know?
Okay.
And so, we would still play it off and on. We even done a little 45 record in 1973. Actually, we recorded in 73. It was released in 74 under the Itchy Brother name. But then, we didn't play together for a while. But they went on with Itchy Brother with different members. And I came back and started playing with them in 1977. And that was Itchy Brother. Itchy Brother lasted till about 81. And there again, we were trying to get a record deal by that point, and it just didn't work out. We were actually talking to Swan Song Records after John Bonham died. Swan Song went, that was it. And I ended up taking a gig with Ronnie McDowell for 8.5 years. The very first day at Ronnie McDowell's rehearsal, I met Doug Phelps, which was putting puzzles together for the feature in a way,
Right.
A little piece of the puzzle. Richard ended up going to work at Acuff Rose writing songs. Fred ended up working with a country artist by the name of Sylvia. Mm-hmm. And we by 1986, we were wanting to get back together and play music in some form or fashion. And the original plan was to put Itchy Brother back together. Even though we were apart, we did a couple of reunion shows in the 80s. And then by 86, we said, yeah, let's get it back together. But at that point, Anthony Kenny was like, I don't know. He had just gotten married. He had a job. He said, I don't know if I really want to pursue the music thing. And we really weren't looking for a record deal at that point. We just wanted to get together and play. But so we said, okay. I suggested bringing Doug Phelps up. This would have been the spring of 86. And Doug agreed to come. And finally, the guys were a little reluctant, because, well, if our cousin Anthony's not going to do it, we don't want to do it, And I understood that because Anthony's our buddy and he's our family. And, but they happened, Richard, and maybe Fred too, happened to catch a couple of McDowell shows with Doug playing bass. And they went, well, okay, he can play and he can sing. So let's get together and jam. So we got together in March of 86 in my basement in Glasgow for the first time. And it seemed like there was a chemistry there. So that was the beginning of what we know as the Headhunters, morphing in from Itchy Brother. And maybe just a few months later, we brought Ricky into the mix. Ricky came to a rehearsal one night. We moved from my basement to the practice house a few weeks after, I don't know, probably the end of 86. And I think out of curiosity, Ricky had moved to Nashville, and he came to rehearsal one night with Doug, and he just got up and sang a couple of songs, and we were like going, oh, this is interesting. This is a good sound. Of course, I don't think Ricky was really looking for a band at that time. I don't think. But somehow we tricked him into joining. And it worked. That's all I can say. It worked. We got together. We played around, Bowling Green, Glasgow, played Louisville. I think we ended up going to Nashville. And of course, when we went to Nashville, we ended up playing Douglas Corner and Exit Inn and places like that. And we started getting people's attention. And there was a sound there. we were writing. We had been writing songs. We've been doing a little radio show called the Chitlin Show at WLOC in Mumfordville, Kentucky, in which we twice a month we'd go over to the radio station, play live over the radio, and sometimes we'd bring a guest in. We brought Ronnie McDowell in. We brought Jerry Dale McFadden in. Sylvia came one time, and different people. It was loose, but it was fun, and that was a part of our maturing as a band doing that show. And by I don't know, it was through a gentleman by the name of Jonathan D.W. Lyle. We had actually went in the studio at Acuff Rose. I don't know what year that was. I'm going to guess 87-ish. Some lady had approached Ricky about it heard Ricky in Nashville singing Walk Softly the way he did it. And we come up with an arrangement, and we agreed to go in the studio. This lady gave us the money, and we recorded a little 45, Walk Softly on one side, Oh Lonesome Me on the other side. They didn't sound, the ingredients was there, but the band hadn't matured yet, so it sounds a little bit different. It's a whole different thing. Just sounds a lot different. So I don't know what year it was, somewhere around 87, 88. Doug and I were out playing with Ronnie McDowell. We were playing at Duke's in Richmond, Virginia. And at the end of the night, we would play an instrumental as Ronnie walked off. And we did Hideaway by Freddie King. And this gentleman walked up right afterwards, and he kind of looked like Dennis the Menace's dad. His name was Jonathan D.W. Lyle. And he said, "Oh, you guys like the blues?" And we got talking, and me and Doug said, yeah, we got a little band back in Kentucky called the Headhunters. We weren't called the Kentucky Headhunters yet. We were called the Headhunters. And we took him on the bus, played him a couple of practice tapes, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you got a cool little band." And then we come to find out he's got a small little record label. He's a music fanatic, loves blues, he loves roots music. And we started staying in touch with him. We played in it. Right after that, Richard came out and started working for Ronnie on the merch side. And he showed up in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta, in Buckhead, I believe that's where it was at. And he would show up different places, and he even come to Glasgow and at the practice house. Then finally he said, he really loved our band. He gave us $4,500, said, "Go cut yourself a record." And there was no paperwork drawn up. There was no interest. He just said, "Pay me back when you can." So I'm thinking it was around 88. We went in and we cut actually, I'll show you. This was Pickin on Nashville before it was released. This was the 8-song cassette that we sold at shows when we played out. And Jonathan D.W. Lyle, he actually put, it's upside down. Sorry about that. There you go. It's just the Headhunters, okay? There's 8 songs on here. Walk Softly, Dumas Walker. Walk Softly's #1 song. Dumas Walker #2, Ragtop, Rock and Roll Angel, High Steppin' Daddy, Some Folks Like to Steal, Oh Lonesome Me, and Skip a Rope. It says produced by the Headhunters, executive producer Jonathan D.W. Lyle, management Mitchell Fox. And so we put this out, and it started getting attention in Nashville. People started hearing it. A gentleman at Sony Records by the name of Larry Hamby heard it, and he freaked out. He said, "Oh God, I got to hear you guys live." And there was other folks like Tom Long and some other people that were spreading the tape around. So finally, it became apparent that we were going to have to do a showcase, and we did a showcase at the end of 1988 at Douglas Corner. And same night, Leroy Parnell was doing a showcase. And there's a story goes along with that, which I'll tell you in a minute. But to make a long story short, Larry Hamby, who was interested from Sony, once he saw the band live, said, "Well, you guys really are more of a rock band. I don't know how we market you guys." And so, we thought going into this, "Oh man, we're going to get signed to Sony," and it didn't work. But Lo and behold, Harold Shedd was there, who had just taken over as president at Mercury Nashville. And he saw something and he liked what he heard. And we found out last fall, he told us, said, "Well, I heard you guys. I told the guy I was with, said, I'm going to sign that band." And he went up to Ricky Lee and got one of these cassettes. And Ricky was getting pretty frustrated at that time because I was out with Ronnie McDowell. Doug was out with Ronnie McDowell. Fred was working. And Harold said, "Well, how often you guys play?" Ricky said, "We never get to play." He was really frustrated. And even Harold says to this day, he says, he said, "Oh, Ricky didn't even want a record contract." He probably didn't even want a contract. But anyway, hey, it was very much longer after that showcase. Paperwork started going between lawyers. It became apparent we were going to get a recording contract. And by late spring of '89, it was all finalized. And we become the Kentucky Headhunters because we found out there was another band called the Headhunters with Herbie Hancock. And somebody suggested we add Kentucky to the name. And that's how we were born, pretty much. Going back to that night at Douglas Corner, Leroy Parnell was actually showcasing for another label. And he said he saw us all come in bringing our broken down vintage gear. He said, "This is an interesting looking bunch." And he saw the old drum set and the Marshall amps. And he said, we started playing. He said, "Oh, heavy metal bluegrass." we laugh about that every time we talk, man. We laugh about that. But, that's kind of how we got from 1968 to '86, the formation of the Headhunters, morphing into that. And then the record deal. Then, it got pretty crazy there for a while. 90 and 91 were nuts.
Yeah. Tell me this, Greg. The tracks that were on that cassette, did you re-record those songs for Pickin' on Nashville, or were they the same tracks?
Same tracks. All we did, we went back and remixed, touch up the mixes. Seemed like a Rock and Roll Angel. I haven't, this is terrible. I haven't listened in a while. I think we added keyboards on that. The original doesn't have, I need to really go back and listen to this. I think I will, because this is a stripped down version. No keyboards or anything. All we did is went back and remixed, and we added Smooth. We recorded Smooth, and My Daddy Was a Milkman. And that was our finished Pickin' on Nashville album for Mercury. But same performances, just a few little minute changes here and there, and remixing, pretty much.
Wow. That doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't. And of course, when we started telling the story, we'd be doing interviews in '89 and '90. Yeah, we did our first album for $4,500. Producers were telling us to shut up. Matter of fact, one producer took us aside and said, "You guys are going to have to quit doing that because you're really hurting it for us." This guy was a big producer too. I won't even mention his name.
Don't let the proverbial cat out of the bag.
No, man. No. So, after we signed the deal, Harold Shedd was happy with the performances. And he just, we knew we needed to remix a little bit. We needed 2 more songs. And by the grace of God, we just came up with the right mix of songs. I don't know, man. There's an innocence on that first album that you just can't recapture. We were, even though some of us have worked in the studio in different capacities, and Doug and I had worked with Ronnie McDowell on albums. And matter of fact, the year before, he had a version of It's Only Make Believe with Conway Twitty, kind of an up-tempo version. We co-produced that with Ronnie, and we learned a lot over those years. Richard learned a lot about his songwriting craft. He was going in the studio doing demos on his songs. Fred was out on the road hitting it hard and heavy. every one of us had to do what we had to do. We were preparing for the Headhunters to happen in '89. It was like going to school, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
everything worked for a reason. Back then, when I love Ronnie McDowell. He was a great boss, but when our rock band didn't work out, it was heartbreaking, and I didn't really want to leave those guys. But since I had a family, I had recently married, and I had 2 stepkids. Still married, still got the same family, you know. Eh, But I got another son now, and got a big fat tomcat, that's 20 pounds around here somewhere. But we all had to do different stuff to maintain, uh, to make a living, to maintain ourselves, and just to get by. But by the grace of God, we were able to reconvene in '86 to put it back together, and slowly it morphed into what we're doing now.
Yeah. Now, if I remember right, was there the cassettes weren't supposed to be pink? Is that right?
No, I don't. They weren't. They weren't. That can you see it pretty good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Matter of fact, yeah. I can't remember the story. I can't remember how that happened. They were printed in Nashville, and they came back pink. And of course, that guitar is actually Merle Travis's guitar. That's a headstock of his big guitar that he played.
Okay.
I haven't looked at this thing inside in years. Let me look at it right now. Let's see what the credits say. Greg Martin, lead guitarist. Doug Phelps, bass and vocals. Ricky Lee Phelps, lead vocals. Fred Young, drums, percussion. Richard Young, rhythm guitar. Okay. Rich Rapani did play Hammond B3 on Oh Lonesome Me on the first go around. I think he came back and put some keyboards maybe on Rock and Roll Angel, I think later. It was engineered by all songs produced and arranged by the Headhunters, which was unusual, which we kept those credits on into the Mercury years. Engineered and mixed by Mike Bradley, who was a very important part of the early sound. The Headhunters would like to thank their families, friends, fans, and staff of WLOC, where we used to do the radio show. Special thanks to the big guy upstairs. Thank you, Lord. Yeah, it was supposed to be pink, man, but I guess that's Kentucky's version of music from Big Pink, right?
Yeah. There you go. Because when I match colors to bands, the first color I think of when I think of you guys is pink. So
it's weird. It is strange. We're not exactly a pink band, are we?
no.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Talk about Pickin on Nashville.
Yes, sir.
That album, when it hit, how did you? This is actually something that runs through your entire, discography. You guys mix originals with cover versions. How did you choose to do Bill Monroe's "Walk Softly"?
That was through Ricky Phelps, and Doug moved to Nashville in '81. We started, like I say, we started Ronnie McDowell at the same time in the fall of '81. And Ricky was out and about doing bluegrass and folk music wherever he was at. But at some point, he moved to Nashville. And I'm guessing it was around '83, '84, but I'm not positive on that. Ricky was playing in Nashville with some guys, and he'd been doing Walk Softly for years. Ricky was more where we were coming from, more the humble pie, the cream, the Jimi Hendrix thing. Ricky had grown up doing more folk music and more bluegrass, but he also liked rock and roll too. So there was no problem there whatsoever. Right. But he had been doing Walk Softly in the clubs, and that's some lady, I can't think of her name now, saw him singing it one time. And that's when we did. I wish I had the 45 to show you. There was a 45 we recorded first time around. She loved the way he did it, and she just wanted, I want a record of you singing it. So we went into Acuff Rose and we did a few songs, and we pulled those 2 songs off and released a little 45. She paid for the pressing of it. But that was Ricky Phelps. He brought that to the band. Uh, yeah, he brought that to the band. Dumas Walker was a collaboration that just fell out of the sky, and we wrote that as a band in at the old practice house. Ragtop was a song brought to the band by Ricky. Rock and Roll Angel was a Richard Young song that he had written before the Headhunters. High Steppin' Daddy, my Uncle Wade wrote that back in the 60s. And he actually, it was released by another gentleman on Blue Angel Records, which is now these records, Blue Angel Records, are very collectible with folks in Europe. They were a label. I think they initiated they started out of Smiths Grove, Kentucky, about 30 miles from here. And then they moved to Louisville. And there was a fellow by the name of Grover Gaddy that recorded anytime Uncle Wade would write something. A lot of times he would record Uncle Wade's songs. So there was a version of High Steppin' Daddy. And we just took it and we revved it up and actually changed the arrangement a bit, added a chorus to it. And that was my Uncle Wade song. And I'm glad we were able to do something for my Uncle Wade because he was a honky-tonk singer around Louisville that played in the region. Great songwriter, great singer, but never had any success. So that one song helped him later in life, paid his house off, took care of him and Aunt Barbara for many years. Really helped him a lot. Oh Lonesome Me, I don't know how that happened. Maybe from Richard's association with Acuff Rose. If you listen to Don Gibson's version, it's oh lonesome me. It's like that. We just kind of revved up, made it happier sounding, and made it more rockabilly type, just more of a rocking thing. Skip a Rope, of course. Oh Lonesome Me and Skip a Rope are covers, as Walk Softly was. But Skip a Rope, as you know, we changed that thing completely around. It's almost like cowpunk. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what Cargill thought. I'm not sure what he thought about that.
I'm sure it had to get his attention.
I hope he liked it. I think
Yeah.
when Bill Monroe at first was real quiet about Walk Softly, he didn't say much. Then he came out and spoke and very favorable. And I think he liked the royalty checks whenever that happened.
Well, I'll tell you, it was not too long after that. I got to spend some time with Bill Monroe, and I asked him about it.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, that he was paraphrasing, obviously, that he's happy whenever anybody records one of his songs, and the more successful the song is, the more he likes it, and the happier he is.
Yeah, I heard, I heard him. I heard one time. Maybe it was Blue Moon of Kentucky. Somebody asked him about Elvis. He said, "Them sure are powerful royalty checks," or something like that. We met Bill Monroe. Doug and I met him the first time. We were out with McDowell, and we were doing the Chitlin show, the Headhunters radio show, and we had this wise idea that, let's get Bill Monroe to do a little liner for our show. Ronnie had played with Bill that day, and Bill was backstage dressed up in just like Bill Monroe. And we walked up. Of course, our hair was it went pretty long even then. And said, "Mr. Monroe, we got a band called the Headhunters. We do a radio show. Would you do a liner for us?" And he finally agreed. He looked at us kind of funny, and we gave him and we told him about the show, and we put the tape recorder. He'd look at us, look at the recorder. He finally said, "This is Bill Monroe from the Grand Ole Opry. You're listening to the Headhunters on the Chitlin Show. Let's all get together and pull for them." That was wonderful. I don't think he remembered that in 89 or 90 when everything really took off. But he was a part of our being, early on, really,
Yeah. Now, he tried to get you guys on the Opry back then, didn't he?
Yes, sir. That's what I hear. Evidently, he wanted us on the Opry, but the word we heard that Roy Acuff was a little taken taken back about our hair. He didn't like our hair. Or I think that people were judging outwardly. They didn't know that we really weren't wild. We had a lot more energy, but back then, but we were really a calm bunch, and people are just judging by the looks. And I think, yeah, Roy didn't. We probably didn't quite fit into his what he thought we should look like. Maybe. God bless the guy, man. But nothing. So yeah, we didn't do the Opry early on. It took us, as you know, many years for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, you mentioned Dumas Walker.
Yes, sir.
What's the backstory on that song?
Well, Dumas Walker was a gentleman from Moss, Tennessee, and he shot marbles. He was a marble shooting champion, and he lived in Moss, which is about from here an hour, 15 minutes, hour and a half. And he ran a little package store, filling station. He sold essential groceries, bread, lunch meat. Yeah, but the thing that attracted us to his store, he sold firecrackers, M80s, cherry bombs, bottle rockets. So every Halloween, we'd make a little trek down there. Halloween's up here were crazy. Edmonton, Kentucky, where Richard Fred and I, that was kind of where we grew up, would turn into a battlefield. People would be they'd be on top of roofs throwing pumpkins, they'd be throwing M80s. It's a wonder if somebody didn't get killed. But we'd be making trips down to Dumas Walker's place and buying firecrackers. Of course, as we got older, then you be in a dry area back then, you'd have to go to Tennessee to buy your beer. So that changed a little later on. But we didn't really know Dumas that well in the 70s or 60s and 70s, But when we put the Headhunters together, we realized it was an intuitive thing that if you're going to write something, you need to write about what you know. Obviously, we're not going to be writing about surfing here in Kentucky. You could probably do it, but it wouldn't make no sense. But so we were writing. There was two places Dumas Walker was about, which is kind of crazy. One place was the Greasy Spoon in Greensburg, Kentucky. That's where the slaw burgers, fries, and a bottle of ski came from. And then Dumas Walker in Moss, Tennessee. Dumas Walker just sang really, that chorus sings so good. Let's all go down to Dumas Walker's. It's just got a ring to it. So we were just writing about little places we knew about, and we just meshed those two areas together, and it worked. And we were doing an interview with Garth Brooks on a syndicated radio show one night, and he was sitting next to me. He looked at me and said, "Is Dumas Walker real?" I said, "Yes, it is." And he was really thinking about it. He said, "I thought it was." He was checking us out, I mean, he was a student. He was checking out. He was trying to figure us out a little bit, And I really, if you're going to write something, write about something you know. But
Well, what? It's got to the listener can tell whether it's authentic or not most of the time.
Exactly. They're not dumb. They know. They absolutely know. Their spirit knows. And if you go to the Beach Boys, they knew about surfing, even though Brian Wilson never surfed. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Dennis was the surfer of the bunch, But Brian was able to take the experience from Dennis and do all those great surfing songs. And yeah, you just got to take what you know about and write about it, And it was real. Dumas was real. Dumas was tickled when the song took off. He was giving cassettes away with the song on it, and we got him in the video, the Dumas Walker video. Unfortunately, Dumas left us in '91. He passed away in '91, but he got to see it happen, and we're real happy about that.
Absolutely. Well, now the follow-up album, Electric Barnyard.
Yeah.
Once again, you guys did a mix of originals in covers. Now it opens with the Chitlin Time. I guess the reference to the Chitlin Show.
Yeah, that was, Funny thing is, we never performed that song on the Chitlin Show. Hideaway by Freddie King was always our theme song. But we sat around. Actually, what's real funny, Michael, is Chitlin Time was written really for Pickin on Nashville. And there was a version recorded, and it was really good. I have not heard it since we recorded it. I wish we could find that version. Uh, if some reason it didn't make the Pickin on Nashville album, maybe someday we'll find it. Well, anyway, when we get, what happened in '90, things went crazy, 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 and the label, you got to get another album, you got to do another album. So in the beginning of 1991, we went in the studio and recorded that, and that was one song that did come forward from the first album. We did another recording of it, and I still believe the first version that we did had the real magic. But God, I haven't heard that thing in years. Someday we'll find a cassette with it on there, I'm sure.
There you go. Then you could, release it on a, lost tracks collection.
Yeah, a box set. Maybe someday a box set, because there's a lot of rehearsals. There's a lot of performances out there. Yeah, I could see that happening for sure. But yeah, we went into 1991. Boy, gosh, now think about that. Everything happened so fast. We had to do an album, and that was Electric Barnyard. Yeah,
Yeah. Now, how did you guys choose to do the Ballad of Davy Crockett?
that was Fred Young. That was Fred Young. He brought that. He brought the idea. We just thought, why not? We got a little flack about it from people, but that was Fred Young's idea, and we did the thing. I think it threw everybody for a loop. We come out of that Pickin' on Nashville album, and the leadoff single for, I believe the leadoff single for Electric Barnyard was Davy Crockett, because we shot a video for it. And I think it had everybody scratching their heads. What are these guys doing? And some people were mad because they were pitching songs. They were all these really good writers. We had people like Bob Dylan even pitching songs to us. Here we are. We come out with like the Ballad of Davy Crockett. It was like slapping them in the face, not doing it on purpose.
Right.
And unfortunately, I don't know. We just love the song, and we still do it it's the last song usually of the night to this day. We do.
Well, I'm sure it's a crowd favorite.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you also had another cover, Jimmy Bryant's Only Daddy to Walk the Line, that folks know from Waylon.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. We probably were doing that. It's really hard for me to remember. We may have been doing that on the Chitlin Show, and maybe it could have been an early part of our repertoire. I'm not really sure. But that was one of the covers we brought forward. I think. I don't believe we put it together in the studio. We love Waylon Jennings. I love his version. They came, was it 67 or 66 whenever you released that?
Yeah, it's in that time frame. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a great song, man. Just a great tune.
Yeah.
And then we also,
on that one, Greg, Waylon had told me he thought that was the most country thing he ever did.
Yeah, I think so too. I love it, man. Oh gosh, it's just there's versions of him doing it out there on TV. I've seen there's a video out there of him on a TV show, and during the song there's this duck sound. Have you ever seen that video?
No.
I don't know if what they were doing. He was infatuated with a duck or what? It's like it was like Donald Duck. It's out there. I've seen it. I don't know what Waylon was.
Was it Rick Dees? Was it?
No, this would have been way before. I think Waylon may have been he may have been in another zone that night, I guess. I love Waylon Jennings. We worked with Waylon, and we finally got to meet him and really loved him. Nice fella.
Sure. He was a great guy.
Yes, he was. Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the covers, and of course, Spirit in the Sky. That was a cover, right?
Well, I was going to ask you how you guys came to do that one.
Well, we all grew up. We're all children of the '60s and '70s, and the best I remember, we were playing the Agora Ballroom in Ohio. And at sound check one afternoon, we started in on playing that, and it just worked. It just worked, and it's actually on a live album, live at the Agora. If you can even find it, it was Mercury put it out as a they call it the authorized bootleg series, and that was one of them. And I think we had just basically worked it up that afternoon, and it was a part of the show that night. We recorded it. And it worked, and we played it. We weren't doing that during the Pickin on Nashville era. It happened during the show, but we were out touring. But when we were putting the Headhunters together in the '80s and into the recording of Pickin on Nashville, we weren't doing that. It happened after we went on tour around 1991. So it was just a song by Norman Greenbaum that we all grew up with and that we loved, and it worked. People love that. That's another song we do to this day as well.
Yeah.
And if you remember back in the '80s, do you remember a version by Doc and the Medics?
Yeah, Dr. and the Medics. Yeah, the goofy, like 2 foot tall hair, 3 foot.
Well, check this out. It was either our first or second trip to England. We're playing a motorcycle festival, and there was this MC on stage, and he was a wild looking cat. And then I finally saw, I said, "Oh, that's Doctor. You speak with Doctor and the Medics." I went, "You're kidding me." And we said, "Listen, we do Spirit in the Sky." And I think he knew that. Would you get up and do it with us? And he got on stage and did it with us. How's that?
There's a combo you don't see every day.
Man, I mean, back in the '80s, whenever his version was out, I would never envision that happening.
I have a hard time envisioning it now.
Yeah. And I've heard from Norman Greenbaum on email and seemed like on Facebook, and he loves our version. He's been real supportive over the years. So, man, going back to when we were kids, for these things to happen, you go, it's just surreal. Synchronicity. It's strange,
Yeah. I'll tell you, one more cover from that album. You did a cover of Jimmy Edwards' Love Bug Crawl.
Oh, God, yes.
Man, I mean, you guys did a really nice cover. It's a great record. Jimmy's record is classic.
I love that. That's Chet Atkins playing guitar in the original. Yeah, that's a great. Well, the Phelps boys knew Jimmy Edwards because he was from their areas, I believe. And Ricky knew about the song Love Bug Crawl, and he brought it to us. And we loved it. So we recorded it, and we do a little different spin on it, but it works, It works.
Yeah. And how did you guys end up doing that Beatlesque type thing with Always Making Love?
That was a Ricky Phelps song. I'm pretty sure it was Ricky Phelps or Ricky and Doug. Well, the Beatles were a big influence on everybody in the Headhunters. That's one thing we could always agree on, that we all love the Beatles. We grew up, maybe we didn't have the bluegrass roots that Ricky had or the folk roots that maybe Doug had. But one thing we did share in common, that we love the Beatles. That definitely, it's got the Beatles thing. And actually, we never used it, and I regret this. In the middle of it, I recorded a harmony slide guitar part, which was sounded just like George Harrison on My Sweet Lord. And some reason we did not use that. I wish we would have. It would have really cemented it, the whole idea. But that was Ricky brought that to the band. He brought that song to the band.
Well, you'll have to do the slide guitar version for the box set.
There again, yes, we just got to go back to the masters and pull that out and remix it and bring that up, because it just never was used.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking. Starliner Media.